Hello and welcome to Focus 54, your real guide to real African news. I'm Prudence Mutimbanyoka, your host for today, as we explore about the upcoming Industrialization Week and the Sadc Heads of State and Government Summit. In this week's edition, we'll focus on the country's preparedness to host the two big events, as well as analyzing the link between media representation and Sadc engagements in advocating regional development. In the studio today, we will be joined by Mr. Richard Mahomva, who is an international relations scientist, to walk us through the developments ahead of the summit and the Industrialization Week. But before that, let's take a look at the stories that are making the headlines across the African continent. We kickstart with Zimbabwe and Rwanda, whereby the two countries entered into bilateral agreements as the government of Zimbabwe is set to second more teachers to Rwanda under the educational, personnel and expertise bilateral arrangements. While the move underscores the government's commitment to pursuing its mantra of engagement and re-engagements, thus fostering regional cooperation and strengthening diplomatic ties. We move on to South Africa, whereby the country's state power utility, Eskom, has reintroduced load shedding due to strained infrastructure causing poor energy production. While this will ultimately drive the country's transition to a more sustainable, efficient and resilient energy mix that will position that country for long-term economic growth. And in Uganda, the country is promoting women entrepreneurship programs through funding and capacity building. Women have expressed their appreciation to the government, while this promotes and paves the way for economic and gender equality. Last but not least, we move on to Ghana, where the Africa Union leaders gather together for a meeting and they have pledged to coordinate resources to develop economies. The pledge stands as a sign of solidarity among small and big economies. Well, that's all we had for you in this segment. Do join us in the second segment for the discussion of the Industrialization Week and the Sadc Summit. Welcome back to the second segment of Focus 54. I'm still your host, Prudence Mutimbanyoka, and now I'm joined by Mr. Comrade Richard Mahomva, an international relations expert and a Pan-Africanist, to walk us through the Sadc Summit and Industrialization Week preparations and developments as time is ticking for the two big events. Welcome to the studio and Focus 54, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's get into it. My first question. These are the two big events for the country this year, the Industrialization Week and the Sadc Summit. Can you walk us through the process and the significance of these two events?
So the Sadc Industrialization Week is a precursor to the summit, as it is in line with the Sadc hosting protocols. And it has been an initiative, particularly the Sadc Industrialization Week. It has been an initiative that is running into the 7th edition this time around, and featuring the prominent industrial and innovation outputs from the region, given the foundational thrust of the regional body as an economic regional community. So it is an initiative really that dovetails with our Zimbabwe's Open for Business policy thrust and augments the already existing economic policy endeavors that Zimbabwe has been engaged in. So it is a welcome initiative that gives life to the economic policy thrust of Zimbabwe as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And looking at the state of preparedness, where are we in terms of progress? And are we really ready to host these two big events?
So the adequate infrastructure to host these two events or this particular summit in its entirety cannot be overemphasized, given that our venues such as the new parliament, which is actually going to host the summit, he has got an architectural outlook which is equivalent to that of the African Union in Addis Ababa. And this should create a mental picture to everyone about the extent to which Zimbabwe is now equipped to be this hub of more diplomatic platforms. So at that stage, I think Zimbabwe is ready. You also look at other sub-venues such as your Harare International Conference Center. It is reputable for its hosting capacity. Needless to emphasize the top-notch global standard hosting, accessories in terms of the main arena and all of that, the rooms. So I think Zimbabwe is ready. Any form of hesitancy around Zimbabwe's capacity to host this summit can only arise from a point of malice. But Zimbabwe is ready. Zimbabwe has got competing hosting capacity like any other African country in this respect.
And to what extent have Zimbabwe media covered the preparations for the Industrialization Week and the Sadc Summit?
Well, just to give a representative sample of yourselves, the public media, we have seen the extent to which, in terms of your editorials, in terms of your current affairs, in terms of your news, in terms of your edutainment, editorial direction, I think it's quite impressive. And the cumulative broadcast content which is pro-Sadc, in my view, I think it gives the ordinary, the passive and the active listener at least 2,000 impressions about Sadc on average, or more. So I think you guys in the public media have done very well in that respect, and you guys as a representative sample of that coverage, excellency. For me, I think it shows the extent to which the media understands the diplomatic centrality of Zimbabwe, owing, of course, to the top-notch diplomatic excellency of our head of state, President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, who has lived true to his word of ensuring that the engagement and re-engagement thrust reaches its pinnacle. And this summit is evident of that fact. And you guys in the media, you have actually embraced that reality and are helping prime this particular affirmative position of the diplomatic trajectory that the president has traversed, courtesy of his diplomatic acumen.
And do you think the coverage is enough in terms of awareness and understanding of both events?
Well, you have got a radio, in my view, which is the most efficient mode of communication in Africa. And I think in terms of a radio broadcast, there's been extensive communication in that respect. But needless to mention that we now have community radio stations, which are courtesy of the opening up of the airwaves by the Second Republic. So the environment really naturally creates a situation whereby if one is not hearing what the media is saying, if one is not feeling what the media is saying, then they are definitely not among the living, because there is that extensive communication that you guys have been doing very well. But also it brings me to a very important point that we exist at a time when the government has also created an extension of the licensing system to TV players. So I think there is this overarching enabling communication environment that has been created by the government. Needless to emphasize also the pervasive influence of social media to the millennial generation as well.
And do you think there are methods put in place to counter the misinformation on social media?
Well, the ordinary and the average Zimbabwean knows that the misinformation is usually an origination of reactionary elements, the common reactionary elements. But the overwhelming evidence of the merits of the engagement and re-engagement policies speak for themselves.
Okay.
And the voice of our policy excellency under the leadership of His Excellency President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa is louder than the prospective mischievous noises that can come. But likewise, you know that democracy is a debate.
Yeah.
So you cannot expect a situation whereby there is a linear narrative that cannot be contested. But if there are contestations to a positive trajectory, you'd expect that those contestations come from a progressive point of view. They come from an organic, patriotic point of view and not any malice. But I'm simply saying, if one sees the roads, they are able to see that there is progress. And in terms of our diplomatic optics, we have ticked a lot of boxes. And it can only take a malicious mind to try and misconstrue or be blind to the greater work that has been achieved so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still on media, in your own opinion, can you please comment on the relationship between the media representation and Sadc policies?
So the media in general, you guys are called the fourth estate simply because you exist amongst other estates. And for you to be called the first estate, it means that there is the third estate, there is the second estate. So basically, you are part of the state, and your relationship in projecting the national trajectory in that respect should be one that is guided by patriotic convictions. And in that regard, it means the media is interconnected to this phenomenal national initiative. And your positive projection of the land has got an effect on the wage of the ordinary worker out there, because your positive projection of Zimbabwe is an injection into the investment injection into the economy. So there is that connection. And you cannot be divorced from that broader ecosystem.
Okay, let me cut you short there. We'll continue this discussion after this short break. Let's take a short break. This is Focus 54. Welcome back to Focus 54. This is the third and final segment where we are discussing Zimbabwe's preparedness to host the two big events, that is the Industrialization Week and the Sadc Summit. We have Comrade Mahomba in this studio, and let's continue with our discussion. What does Zimbabwe's chairmanship role entails in geopolitical terms?
So, His Excellency President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, he has left a trail of development footprints. And naturally, by him taking the lead of the regional bloc, the region should actually anticipate a transplant of Zimbabwe's progressive policies to the rest of the region. We are talking about a leader that has resuscitated the economy out of a history of so much instability, and he has led the path to Zimbabwe having a gold-backed currency. So what that translates is that under his leadership, economic stability will be guaranteed in the region. We are talking about a leader that has spearheaded an earnest policy of making Zimbabwe open for business. So what does it mean? It means that under his leadership, the Sadc region will be an optimal destination for internal and external capital. This is a gentleman under his leadership that Zimbabwe managed to have a $23 billion economy. So it means that under him, the mineral endowments of the region are going to be innovatively explored for greater dividends that will benefit each part of the region. We are talking of the lithium beneficiation that has been spearheaded by his leadership, innovation and genius. Not to even forget the agricultural mechanization, the Pfumvudza that has actually taken course at the palms of his genius and innovation. And we are saying, with this reputable sample of excellency that has occurred under his leadership in Zimbabwe, we are able to see the same, permeating to other parts of the region. And of course, the fundamental aspect of regional peace, integration and unity is going to be one of the major milestones that will be attached to his legacy to this effect. So there is many examples really that accentuate the positive benefits that the region is going to accrue under Zimbabwe's chairmanship.
Okay. So what can the business, like the ordinary businessmen in Zimbabwe, what can they do in order to partake into the benefits of the Industrialization Week and the Sadc Summit?
So, of course, the Second Republic has been initiating the birth of many industrial initiatives. So this is an opportunity for our local manufacturers of goods and service providers to widen their market, because this is offering a free opportunity for partnerships to say you are going to interact with your counterparts in Zambia, in Mozambique, in Botswana, and South Africa. So it's a free opportunity for our business community to actually find synergies of growing their markets and at the same time growing our economy back home. Once they expand their territories beyond our borders.
And in closing, what are the expected outcomes from these events for Zimbabwe, the Sadc region, and the Africa at large?
So, number one, it is the perpetuity of the protocol benchmarks of our unity. So that is number one. And it is also a clear and a strategic monitoring and evaluation direction to the aspect of peace, to the aspect of unity, to the aspect of security and industrialization. And I've already indicated that we have a leader whose industrial and innovation track record is there for the world to see. Therefore, we should anticipate a transplant of the Zimbabwean development trajectory permeating across the entire Sadc, but also Zimbabwe benefiting from the accelerated development that is going to be born out of this new chapter of our chairmanship.
The Second Republic is rolling out a massive industrialization projects, with the president emphasizing the need to attain an upper middle income society by 2030. As we all heard, Zimbabwe is quite ready to host the Industrialization Week and the Sadc Summit. It was good having you in the studio, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being with us on Focus 54. I'm still your host, Prudence Mutimba Nyoka. Stay blessed.